I'd like now to open it up for comments and mostly for questions, so that our speakers can be able to respond to the questions, to your questions. And then after that, we will be able to share with you our next steps, recommendations, and when you can be able to expect our new webinar. So I will open it up to the questions. So what you will do is you will unmute yourself, introduce yourself, and then pose your question. Please make it very short so that we can be able to give as many people as possible an opportunity to be able to ask, because all of us are really involved in this. We've been doing something, maybe it's been incomplete, but now is the opportunity to understand how to complete the whole cycle and to complete it in a more active way. So I will allow the first question. You unmute yourself.
Yes.
Hello, Mr. John.
Okay.
Hello.
There is a gentleman called Kanake. Kanake, I think you'll go first. Please make your question very short and crisp so that we give a chance to somebody else. Mr. Kanake,
Yes.
go ahead.
Thank you, John. My name is Ephraim Kanake. I'm from Kara, Kenya Alliance of Residents Association. As a board member, I'm a treasurer there, and I've been very appreciative of this particular conversation taking place. My question and maybe observation in terms of what is happening now is that I am happy about what I can see and what I'm listening to, the circular economy. My concern is one, as having a background of the residents, the households, the many Kenyans who are here and who are listening to this conversation. The transformation expected for this green economy to take place requires that the whole lot of us are part of the conversation. Now, we could be talking now here through this webinar, but since last time when we met, I have not seen Dr. Macharia, but I think if he is there and Kedogo is there, I think I would like to say that we need to have this journey taking place continuously for the Kenyan people to be educated, informed, and communicated to through all the media channels we have, including print and tele. But this has not taken place yet. We are talking of policies being made. I am familiar with it. I'm in a process. I'm in a team that is dealing with this issue of even shutting down the Dadora site. But I want to say we have not been able to engage the Wajiko in this conversation properly so that the transformation is expected to take place. It will not be done in a webinar like this. It will not be done. It needs to be seen on the television. It needs to be seen on the papers. Something like a strategy to transform our mindset from the linear to the circular. I like the way Kedogo has put it. But are we really getting this conversation right into the heart of our people so that they are part of the process and the transformation? For the people, the residents, to start separating garbage at the source, we will need to have them to own it up, to take it up. Can Kedogo respond to that so that we can have some on the strategy? And I know Macharia is there, and we have been together dealing with this issue. But I want to, from this particular platform, get some kind of insight so that we can engage to see how fast we are going to now start responding and reaching out to the Wajiko down there on the circular economy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kanake. And I think any of the speakers could have responded to that, but it seems like it's directly to Mr. Augustine Kendewo. But Augustine Kendewo, hold on to your microphone. We will take some more questions and then we'll come back to you. But now you know what your question is that you need to respond to. Basically, how do we communicate so that the people on the ground can be able to be involved and be actively engaged in segregation at source? Hold on to that while we take another question. So second question, please.
Hello, Mr. John. And
Richard, hi.
all the other
Please go ahead.
Yeah, my name is Richard Kainika. I represent the Kenya Association of Waste Recyclers. Kenya Waste Recycling Association is the umbrella for businesses that are in the process of of value from waste. And this, I want to say first of all that this is a very great engagement, and we are very grateful. Secondly, that I also want to direct a question also to Mr. Augustine in regards to the issue of infrastructure. I was reading a report by called the Breaking the Plastic Wave. This report indicated that globally 59% of plastic collection is contributed by the informal sector. And now the global statistics obviously are not exactly like what we have in Kenya. We know that in Kenya, waste mostly is done by the informal players. According to KAWR perspective, we have about 79% contribution by the informal sector. This involves the waste pickers, the kind of players that we would refer to as micro enterprises. Considering the issues that we are having in Kenya currently and the policy that guides and the regulations that are guiding these operations, it is in common knowledge that people are really experiencing a lot of challenges, and we want to commend the government and all the other players, especially in regards to the current legislation about sustainable waste management bill and policy, and even the extended producer responsibility legislation that is currently in the process. But what I want to draw attention to is what is happening currently. Yesterday, I attended a meeting by KEPSA once again with a lot of gratitude, and the NMS, Nairobi Metropolitan Services. And we set some goals that were going to about 100 days. And I want to ask Mr. Augustine whether perhaps from where the government perspective is, whether there is something that can be done at the moment, even as we wait for the registration to be done, in regards to creating infrastructure to encourage more collection and recycling and engagements with also the industry, whether they get enacted, so that it can be easy for these micro enterprises, because these are people who are willing to work, these are people who are investing their money. Globally, obviously, at 59%, Kenya at 77%, it means that what we are discussing is in the hands of the micro enterprises. And these are not people who can show up during board meetings. These are people who could very easily be sidelined by this kind of engagement. So my question is, and I want also to put something that I also heard from another engagement that we had with CAMP, that one of the government representatives, that I don't want to name, said that the kind of people that the association represents are the micro enterprises, and that these are people who lack the government, the quality standard, what do you call it? The mark of quality. So in terms of market access, which is a serious problem to these enterprises, this senior person suggested that for those who don't have the mark of quality, we may not have any much to do about them. But then those who have the mark of quality, we can see what to do for them. But then if we look at this, if we are contributing at 77%, I don't think it is wise for these people to be assumed. So in terms of infrastructure and facilitation of this industry to grow, is the government able maybe to come in between the regulators and create some some systems that can absorb them, as we encourage them to come up and get compliant, as we encourage them to start to create structures in their operations, and this would be very helpful. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Richard. I allowed you a bit of some extra time because you represent a very key industry when it comes to circularity to pose your questions. It seems like both your questions were also directed to Augustine. So those so far are 2 questions to Augustine, but I will ask Augustine to wait while we take another question. And I'd like to say there was Marion Maina who had unmuted herself, but she had to mute because somebody had gone ahead. Marion, if you're still on the call and if you remember your question clearly, please pose your question. And after that, we can also ask another question. Those will be 4 questions, and then the speakers can be able to respond to those 4 questions. So Marion, are you on the call to ask your question? Marion is not in a position to do so. So anybody else now, can you please pose a question?
Yeah, I'd like to ask a question.
Go ahead, Mr. Akshay.
Yeah, so I'm in the plastics packaging manufacturing space, and a lot of my customers are not really, I would say, either sensitized or educated on what exactly does it mean to be 100% recyclable, when it comes to their packaging design. So my question is, what is being done to educate the entire FMCG and packaged, goods sector to understand, what is the meaning of being 100% recyclable, and then what is being done to sort of move those particular companies towards that type of packaging, either through regulatory or some other social influencing. I would be interested to understand what's being done in Kenya on that front. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Akshay. You didn't direct your question to a specific person, but I'm going to direct your question to 2 people. Faith, you will speak about what is currently being done in Kenya, and then maybe Mr. Apit will speak about the global practices. So Mr. Augustine Kendewo, you will go first with a question about communication on circularity, and then you'll also respond to the second question by Mr. Richard Kainika, and then Faith will and Apit will respond to the last question by Mr. Akshay. So Augustine, take it away.
Okay, thank you very much, John. Although my internet was breaking, but I was able to get a few things here and there. And I hope you are also able to listen to what I'm saying. You're able to hear, what I'm saying. Thank you very much. I got to the question from Kanake from Kara about awareness campaigns.
Correct.
Yes, I think it is very true. We are engaging with the Nairobi Metropolitan Service. Actually, they have an RRI of 100 days. So what we have done as a ministry is to engage a PR firm. So we send out invitation for people who have experience in the public relation activities to come forward. And so far, we've identified a firm, actually a consortium of firms, 2 firms, who will actually be doing a lot of awareness creation as we implement the Nairobi Action Plan on Waste Management within the 100 days. So we are together with NMS, and we are going to have to call for all stakeholders. Actually, as a ministry, we will not do it with NMS alone, but we are going to call for all the stakeholders, including the waste handlers and the transporters. Actually, I don't know whether it can be seen on the screen. There is this thing here. I don't know how we can make it to be seen on the screen, but it is something to do with the consultancy services to undertake, for a PR firm to undertake the Nairobi City County Environmental Sustainability and Circular Economy Awareness Campaign. And in this, what we want this firm to do is to develop and implement an advocacy communication plan for the Sustainable Waste Management Policy Bill, Electronic Waste Management Strategy, and the Nairobi Waste Management Action Plan. Undertake a curriculum development and training for environmental journalists, conduct training of trainers for waste service providers, identify provision of media support, creation of content, dissemination, and press clippings. It's a lot of work for this firm. Production of communication, documentaries, and circular economy success stories. So this is a firm that will be working behind the scene to ensure that we really raise the awareness in as far as waste management is concerned within the Nairobi City County. We are going to roll out this. This is a pilot phase for us as a ministry. We want to try with Nairobi City County, and then after this, we will now replicate the same within the other counties to based on the successes that we shall have had using the Nairobi City County as a case study. So we are moving towards that. Actually, the issue of awareness, we are moving towards that, and we shall do it. And then there was an issue of infrastructure from Richard Kainika. Still again, like revolving around awareness campaigns and ensuring that everyone is brought on board. Again, that one we are doing it for Nairobi. I hope Richard Kainika is based in Nairobi, and we'll be able to engage with them in ensuring that there is a good infrastructure for a circular economy. The mark of quality, you mentioned something to do with the mark of quality. As I said, we are actually, as a government and as a ministry, we are coming up with the Green Public Procurement Framework, and within this, we are going to identify products and services to start with that are environmentally friendly, but we'll move forward and in fact even engage with KEPS. Actually, we'll engage with Kenya Proof Standards to be able to identify how are we going to do the labeling of the products. I don't think the spirit of this framework is really to lock out anyone, but I think the spirit of the framework is to be able to have those bodies that will do the standardization in terms of eco-labeling and be able now to really assess those enterprises that are currently going on in a bid to providing that quality mark, which is an eco-label quality mark, so that at least that product is now recognized as a green product and find its way even into government offices. I think that is what we are trying to do as a government and as a ministry. So I want to assure that I think we are on course. There'll be a lot of discussion going on and no one will be left behind. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Augustine, for your response. So now I'd like to open it up to Faith Ngige to respond to Mr. Akshu's question about what's currently being done about the materials that we currently use in packaging and how the manufacturers can be reached so that they can know what is recyclable and what is not recyclable. And then Mr. Arpit will give the global perspective on what's being currently done as far as packaging is concerned to make it much more recyclable. Faith, take it away.
Thank you, John and Mr. Akshi, for the question. Within the partnership, we indeed recognize that capacity and awareness is a challenge. And working together with the Kenya Climate Innovation Center, we have developed 5 training modules. The waste collectors training module, the recyclers module, consumers guide, retailers guide, and producers manual. So these trainings we have organized to take place between September and October because we indeed recognize that capacity and transformational shift of the mind is important, and even just the interpretation of eco-designs and what is the role within the circular economy. So our expectation is that eventually we will partner with the ministry to be able to roll out a bigger curriculum. We ensured that the policy recognizes the capacity building and even the establishment of an institute eventually that will just be handling waste management training in the country. So we are still taking baby steps, but we will eventually get there. We can get in touch with you further in terms of just participation and engagement. The only other comment I wanted to add is the issue of the infrastructure, and still within the multi-agency framework at the Ministry of Environment and Nairobi Metropolitan, we engage with the National Treasury, and they have called upon any private sector players that have proposals for public-private partnerships and in waste management to present their proposals, and the National Treasury will be ready to support the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Faith. Mr. Arpit.
Yeah, thank you so much, John. First, I'd like to take just a few seconds on the how we have to sensitize. How I've seen globally governments have been doing that. One of the best practice in that case is Zero Waste Scotland, where they actually mobilized all the consumers and they made it feel as a part of their lives to recycle and to return. I mean, they're, unless the consumers return the plastics, it will never get recycled in the end. So that's the same thing has been done in Denmark also with the deposit refund system. And it's surprising to know that they recycle 104% of all the aluminium cans which are there. 4% is the one that are imported in the system. So they actually recycle more than they manufacture. And around 94% of it is plastics. So it's all because the consumers are very sensitized. So unless the consumers are at the upfront of it and feel a part of the movement, it's not going to happen. On Akshay's question, there is a lot to be done on the standards part of it, and we don't really talk about it. Especially in the case of FMCG, the food laws in most of the countries do not allow recycled plastics to be used because there are not enough studies that the food will be safe, or whether the amount of recycled plastic or what kind of recycled plastic has been used to make that container. So there needs to be standards for recyclability to happen in order to be safe. For the SMEs to convince them to do it, and for businesses to do it, we need to show them the evidence of profit and business angle to it. And if we do it, I mean, businesses are very intelligent, and if they see profitability and if they see that it's going to in the end benefit them, they're going to do it much more than how we can tell them, and they'll be doing it much more innovatively than us ever. Now, another main important thing is which we don't talk about is the design, and that's when designers and the plastic industry takes the role, because they are the people who are actually involved in it, and they're the people who are on the ground doing it. So they need to design plastics that that do not end up in the landfill. How it is being done globally, like I said in the presentation, a lot of plastic pacts are happening industry-wide, city-wide, where all the stakeholders are brought in together, and targets are set, 5-year targets, 3-year targets are set, and they are bound by the targets. And it's not that there is a penalty for that, but they feel it's a movement, and everybody takes part in solving the issue. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Arpit, for that. And I think when Mr. Arpit was responding also, there's something which I picked up, which we can be able to relate very well with as Kenyans. We are famed for athletics. And if you are famed for athletics, I think I'll take you back to the racetrack. And I'm sure most of you are familiar with the 4x4 relays. And in the 4x4 relays, you will definitely see a starter who will run the race, or maybe the 4x1s, hand over the baton to somebody else, and another one, and another one. So circularity, if you want to look at it properly, it's an endless 4x1 race where you run, hand over the baton to somebody else, like that, and it becomes continuous and continuous and continuous. So that's how circularity is all about. So where you are, you could be one of the races, maybe the first one to start, maybe you're the one who is the anchor who runs last, hands over to the other one, like that. So there's a place where you are in circularity. And I think it's very important that you understand where you are, which part that you play. And it's also very important that you understand who else is supposed to be part of that collaborations, so that those materials don't fall off the racetrack. So that's where we are. And as you ask your questions also, please reflect on this, pose your question, and then we will be able to respond to that. So I come back to you, the listeners, for another round of 2 to 3 questions. And after that, I think we will close it where the speakers will be able to speak and give their closing remarks. And then I'll close out this webinar by giving us the next steps and when you can be able to expect your next webinar. So 2 questions before we close it out.
May I ask another question, John?
Well, you've made it first, actually. Go ahead.
Okay, so this one is on life cycle assessment across different materials that are used in packaging. Either maybe Arpit or Faith could answer it. That is there life cycle assessment being done in Kenya, for plastic, paper, aluminum, glass, whatever other materials, so that we understand how sustainable it is from an energy, water, and other resources perspective to actually recycle one versus the other material.
Maybe Arpit, you can, okay, Faith, would you like to take that? In case you don't take it, I was about to throw it to Mr. Augustine Kendewo.
My understanding of life cycle assessment while training has taken place, I am not aware of any that are started in Kenya, unless John, you correct me, but I haven't come in contact with any person who is doing that, yet we know that it is fundamentally very important in terms of just helping life cycle thinking into the production designs and the whole circularity approach. So that maybe should be our next biggest undertaking. After creating the regulatory frameworks around it, we should be able to focus our mind into that.
Okay, Joe, can I also chip in?
Oh, please go ahead, Mr. Augustine.
Oh, okay, thank you, Faith. I think life cycle assessment of products are actually very important, as Faith has just alluded. We tried within Ruaraka business community, that is Rubicon, and a strategic partnership with the Danish government. It's called Strategic Sector Cooperation with the Danish government through the Danish embassy. And yes, a few companies, we subjected a few companies to life cycle assessment in terms of what they were producing, because we are trying to look at how do we encourage something called symbiotic, industrial symbiosis within the Ruaraka business community. So it was on a pilot phase, and I believe the outcome from there was to inform. There's another research that is being undertaken by Technical University of Denmark and Kirdi, which is called Green and Circular Economy, something within companies of Kenya. It's called KECO project. So I think this is something that is in the pipeline. We have not moved into it per se, but it is part of what we are trying to look at so that we see whether we could move towards this phase going forward. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Augustine. Maybe just to chip into that one, my experience with life cycle analysis and life cycle cost comes through, for example, when you're building green buildings. Normally there is a requirement through the rating systems that your material, in case it doesn't have an eco label, as a manufacturer, you're supposed to get an environmental product declaration. And basically, to get an environmental product declaration, you have to subject your product to the life cycle analysis, which looks throughout the entire product, how you are able to to extract the materials, how you use the materials, and how do you recirculate most of those materials to make sure that your environmental footprint is as minimal as possible, so that if your material is to be accepted and specified on a project, it actually meets environmental standard. So the only challenge has been that locally, most of the consumers don't really ask for that. So that is sort of like a let-off for the manufacturer, that I can be able to produce and sell my product without somebody consciously asking me whether my product actually meets those requirements. So with the direction that you're taking, for example, what Augustine has said about sustainable consumption of material, now the life cycle analysis is going to be one of those requirements that producer will have to make, because it also looks into your packaging, and you have to explain concisely how your packaging can be able to recirculate and make sure that it doesn't end up in the landfill. So you have to disclose in future, once the extended producer responsibility is in place, that you're actually a member of a PRO, which will be in place in Kenya, and that your product is actually not one of the products that is actually degrading the environment. That's the little that I can speak about that respond to your question, but it's a longer discussion, and I think we are available. Any of the speakers is available, and you can be able to reach them, and they can be able to tell you much more. Thank you. Sorry, Aprit, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, just one point on the LCA. I've been reading a lot of LCA studies lately. It's very difficult to compare one LCA study from another. One can say that the glass is more sustainable, and the other can say plastic is. So it all depends on what variables have been chosen. Also, on most of the LCA studies, what they take into the hypothesis is that all of the waste is collected, and that's the problem with plastics. The waste is not collected. So when the waste is not collected, then it does not become the part of the LCA study. They can only study the waste that is collected. So I think when it comes to plastic, we don't need to do a lot of numbers to ascertain the issue. When it comes to aluminium and glass, LCA studies make more sense. But when it comes to plastic, because there are so many leakages, it does not. We don't need to get hidden behind numbers to take any action. That's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Arpit. So we can take one more question, and then we can bring our webinar to the close with some recommendation and next steps, and of course, when we will be having the next series of our dialogue. So one question, please. Okay, going once, going twice. Okay, all right. Thank you so much, listeners. It seems like there is no further questions. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to give each speaker just a couple of minutes to give your closing remarks, and then we can be able to bring this session to a close. So I will start with Apit, and then we will have Michael, we will have Faith, and then Mr. Augustine. You can close it out for us, for the speakers.
Thank you, John. First of all, thank you to you and KEPSA and the government of Kenya for inviting me for this. Just quick few points. When we talk about circular economy, we have all these measures and all these policies coming in. We don't talk about indicators on how we measuring whether the policies are actually working or not, if initiatives are working or not, which is actually required. I have studied some of the indicators, and the best ones are in Colombia and the European Commission. They're actually measuring their progress on a monthly basis, and with a lot of data being collected. So that is very important, which becomes a challenge in informal economies like India and Kenya. So that's something has to be kept in mind. The other thing is that just one quote by somebody I really admire is that anyone who believes that exponential growth can go on forever in a finite world is either a madman or an economist. So we really need to change the way we operate and change the way we make our economy work. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Right. Thank you, Arpit. Michael?
Thank you. Thank you very much, John, for the opportunity again. And thank you everyone for taking your time to listen to us. I think for me, this is a very important topic. It's new and we are all learning. It's about our future generations, and that's why we need to do a bit more to ensure that we actually make it roll on. It's also about our planet, and it's very important. It's about sustainable development goals, which SDG 12 speaks a lot to it, and we must actually make sure that we progress. I think the time to act is now, and this series and the many more that will come, the actual practices on the ground will actually make us operationalize and make it kick off. It's important to start small, or all of us are learning from it. It's acceptable, I think, to make mistakes as we move along, learn from them, and ensure that it succeeds. I think, as it had been mentioned, partnership in this one is key, and partnership between producers, the users of equipment and materials, the consumers, and government. And at this point, I really want to thank the Ministry of Environment. I think well known is said and done. Our involvement, our engagement with the Ministry of Environment in the past has been fantastic.
Seems like Michael's connectivity has frozen, so maybe Augustine, you can go ahead.
Yes, we move on.
Oh, sorry, he's back. No, he's frozen again. So maybe Faith, you can go on, and then Augustine can close out.
I want to appreciate this particular series, and I want to believe, Mr. Augustine being with me, that these discussions are not just discussions because it's a nice thing to do discussions. We will produce these reports and make sure they are part and parcel of the Ministry of Environment output for GGP program, which then informs even our next steps as far as circularity is concerned. Therefore, we commit to be consistent, not to lose focus. We will be dedicated, and our partnerships for economic, social, and environmental change will be very instrumental to helping us realize our end goal. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much, Faith. Michael, maybe if you're back, let me just bring you to close out. I think you were about to finish your presentation, and then I think your connectivity froze. So maybe you can wind up, and then we give Augustine his opportunity.
Yeah, sorry, John, and my apologies. I actually didn't realize that. So, not sure where I was, but I really want to emphasize that partnership is key in ensuring that this agenda is moved forward. And I was at a point where I was thanking the Ministry of Environment. I think they've been really very instrumental in terms of partnering with private sector to ensure that the circular economy agenda is pushed ahead. We've had so many strategies, we've had so many drafts of regulations. I think where we are now, we are almost at the tail end, and there's a silver lining in terms of implementation and making them operational. Asante sana.
Okay, thank you so much, Michael. So Augustine, to close out the speakers.
Yes, thank you very much, John and colleagues. For me, I have nothing much to add except to say that the Ministry of Environment and Forestry is happy to collaborate with all of you. I can say the plane is on the runway and we are almost taking off. And I can assure you, as a Ministry of Environment and Forestry, we are ready and more than ready to ensure that we transition our economy towards green and circular economy pathway. When nature speaks, it can speak very harshly, as you have seen in the past. And the joy of any government is to ensure that the economy grows, and at the same time, it is inclusive in such that the people that the government is governing actually are economically empowered. So that is the beauty of every government, and that is the strive that you are making. In all this, we must make it as much as sustainable as much as possible. And that is why green and circular economy is actually the thing, the in thing within the Ministry of Environment and Forestry. And as a coordinator on this line, I'm more than ready to engage and to make sure that we push this agenda forward. So the Ministry of Environment and Forestry is in the forefront in providing an enabling environment for this shift towards green and circular economy. So please, as you go back to your homes, ensure that we are more than ready to engage, and we are ready as a government to make sure that we shift our economy and address the impacts of climate change. Thank you very much, and God bless you.
Thank you so much, Augustine, for closing it out very eloquently there, giving the position of government that you are ready to engage, you are ready to collaborate. You've already demonstrated that by being part of this call. Thank you so much for joining us on this call. And of course, from the various policies that are taking place in the country. Now, before we close, I will play to you again the video about circularity. But for now, as I give my final remarks, it's that there's this economic term which I came across, which is called poverty in the midst of plenty. And basically what that means is that you are poor or you are not reaching your potential, but you are in a resource-rich area, but then you're not able to reach your potential. And the question is, why is that happening? Why is that possible? And I think now this is the time where we get down into that thinking. Circularity or circular economy has actually come in with this thinking that can be able to disentangle us from this poverty in the midst of plenty, where we can be able to create opportunities for entrepreneurs in circularity, we are able to improve our health by making sure that these contaminated materials do not injure our health and we have to spend money on health. And it's also making sure that we end up with places which are environmentally clean and beautiful, creating better places for us to live, work, and play. So I think if we embrace this whole conversation about circularity, we can be able to do that. We understand that the last 2 hours are not enough for us to get hold and understand circularity. And that's why we say that we will create a dialogue series where in the next series, we will be tackling now some other issues. But we feel that before we do so, we'd like to hear from you, all of you, and not even just you, but also the rest of the people who are not part of this, but they're part of your bigger networks, that there is an ongoing conversation, which is very interesting and exciting, and it's the right way to go. And based on that, we'll be able to also play our role in the communication, which Mr. Kanake spoke about, that I think this information needs to reach out to the people. So we also carry a responsibility who are on this call to be able to do that. And where the information was not clear, we are more than happy to receive your emails or your phone calls or your text messages on what can be the next steps you can take within yourself and the role that you are able to play. So now to finish off our webinar, we will be sharing with you when we're having the next one. But now let me play to you again the video. And I hope this time around, I think the audio will be clear so that you can be able to know exactly what our circularity is. Otherwise, we thank you so much for being a part of this conversation, a part of this dialogue for the last 2 hours. And we hope that you will be a part of ours next time. And you'll also invite your friends or your collaborators or people in your networks so that we have a bigger group that we can be able to speak to, that can also be able to take action for the next steps when it comes to circularity. Thank you so much. And let me share my screen as I play this video. Thank you so much.
Hi, Alex here. Today's video is about circular economy. It is a term that we hear a lot these days. I was asked many times to make a video about it, so here it is. I will explain what we mean by circular economy. I will go through all the things we can do to go from our current economy to a circular one, and I will use many examples. If you stay until the end, I will share a book with you that you can read to learn more about it. You will see there is way more to it than just recycling. Okay, let's get drawing. When my son was 3 years old and asking his mommy what was this circular economy thing she was working on, here is what she told him. It is when everything is healthy food for something else. So simple and sweet. I loved it. In other words, it means running the economy like nature runs its own business. Plants use carbon dioxide and nutrients to grow and produce oxygen. Animals use oxygen and create carbon dioxide and nutrients. Nothing is wasted. It is a closed-loop system. Circular economy is generally opposed to the linear economy, take, make, waste, we have been running for many years. Some people also use the term cradle to cradle as opposed to cradle to grave. As explained in my triple bottom line video, the economy is part of society, which is part of the environment. You can click here if you want to watch this video. Now let's look at the economy. We can split into two categories the things that we need to run into closed loops. Technical materials, biological materials. Technical materials have this typical life cycle. Raw materials are mined, the product is manufactured, then it is transported to be used until the end of its life. We often tend to think about the end of life and the importance of recycling, and this is true. But for our economy to be circular, there are many things we can do before the end of life. It starts with using resources that are already extracted. Say my product needs copper. It is best to mine copper that is not used anymore, that we also call post-consumer, as opposed to mining some new one from the ground. Especially when you know that 1. Copper is predicted to be mined out worldwide by 2040, and 2. Processing recycled copper uses only 10 to 20% of the energy it takes to process new copper from virgin ore. When manufacturing my product, I can design it so it can easily be dismantled and the copper can easily be recycled next time. I can also manufacture my product so it lasts a long time, so it can be maintained and repaired. I can design it so it uses as little energy as possible. This TED video uses a great example of a tea kettle and the fact that during commercial break of a popular TV show, England has to buy nuclear power from France because millions of people go to the kitchen at the same time to boil an entire 2-liter kettle to make 1 cup of tea. Once a product cannot be used anymore, then it needs to be collected and recycled. Here comes an important question. Does the recycled material maintain its quality to be used for similar applications, or is it downcycled into a material that has a poorer quality? Downcycled was a term from the book Cradle to Cradle. You can find a link in the description below. Remember, in a circular economy, everything is healthy food for something else. Nothing goes to landfill. Biological materials are farmed or collected and then possibly processed and transported before reaching the consumer. Once consumed, they can be used to create biogas, biochemicals, or be composted. Finally, they can go back to nature to restore it. But again, in a circular economy, nothing goes to landfill. 2 transition strategies can be very helpful as we're trying to create a circular economy. Substitution and dematerialization. Substitution is about using different resources to achieve the same goal. For example, the world is running out of lithium. So, unless we can recycle lithium batteries more efficiently, sodium-ion batteries might be a better option for car manufacturers in the future. Dematerialization refers to using less of a resource to serve the same economic function in society. As an example, Interface is the world's largest designer and maker of commercial modular carpet. But they don't sell the carpet anymore. Their customers buy the service of having carpet on their floor. Interface is in charge of maintaining and repairing the carpet, and they do that very efficiently because it is their specialty and they control the entire process. Using tiles, they can replace only the ones that need replacing. The old tiles go back to the factory to be recycled, where new tiles are made with 98% recycled or bio-based content. How is that for almost circular? Of course, creating a circular economy is only one piece of the sustainability puzzle, and many other aspects have to be taken into account to get 100% sustainable. Climate change, sustainable energy, sustainable agriculture, social sustainability, etc. As promised in the beginning, here is a great book I recommend if you want to learn more. It is very well put together and it talks about circular economy in the modern age. I will put a link in the description below. If you found this video useful, please like it, subscribe, and click the bell to be notified when we post new videos. You can help us make more videos to learn about sustainability for free by making a pledge on our Patreon page or by giving us a tip on our website sustainabilityillustrated.com.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. So, asanteni sana for listening in. Until the next session, which we will communicate to you. Thank you very much and have a good afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.